So there is a mixture of people here today, people that have signed up to Chase the Sun for the first time, others have done it many times, and others have never done it before. Yeah, it's really nice that we've got such a good mixture. I'm Izzy, I'm the marketing lead at Chase the Sun, but I've also done Chase the Sun a few times. I've done it 3 times. I rode the South twice and then the North. So I know how epic the event is, but I can also empathize with the challenges that many are facing in terms of the training and as well as the challenges that occur on the actual day itself. So, just to remind you of the agenda before we crack on, I'm going to hand over to Ollie in a minute. Ollie is the founder and director of Chase the Sun. He'll be introducing the event. And then I'll pass over to our amazing ambassadors. So that's Amanda, Alice, Rowanna, and Debbie, who would be sharing stories about their experience in training and doing the event, and also offering top tips as well. And then we'll move on to the Q&A after that. So whenever those questions come to mind, just put them in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can throughout the Q&A. I am going to hand over to Ollie now for the intro.
Thanks, Izzy. Hi, everyone. I'm Ollie, creator, founder, and rider of the Chase the Sun's challenges since 2008. So I'm just going to give a quick intro. What is Chase the Sun? Well, it's a really simple idea, really. It's a collective bike ride seeking sunrise to sunset adventures. You cycle across the country from coast to coast on the longest day of the year, basically to find out how far you can pedal in one day. And what does it feel like to cycle the whole of Midsummer's Day of the year, experiencing from the first ray of sunrise to the last ray of sunset, and like everything in between that the day's got to offer? Chase the Sun aims to share this experience and this vision with as wide an audience as possible, and we're aiming to be an inclusive event. Chase the Sun events are not competitive, so one of our central tenets is that they are a ride, not a race. That's a very important motto for us. So the event, it's an open invite to all to ride and test yourself against the sun, not against each other. There's no rankings, there's no timings, there's no winner. It's important, this. It brings together and unites a community of cyclists who are all riding towards the same motivational goal: to ride together, to help each other, to meet each other, to share an experience, and ultimately to make it to sunset. And that makes it a richer day for all. Chase the Sun has grown since I first set off with 2 friends in 2008, and today we now organise 4 routes across 4 different countries. That's Ireland, Italy, England, and Scotland, each and every midsummer weekend. If you like, it's a 4 sunsets challenge to collect the whole Grand Slam if you want to tackle them all in different years. How to take on these rides? Many people enter individually, but I always say you'll rarely ride alone on Chase the Sun. The community that is around you on the day is made up of so many people like you that you'll be surrounded by friendly, like-minded others who you'll meet and will join you on your journey. Many people enter in teams, riding with support vehicles or as clubs or for charities, and an increasing number of people are taking up our team relay entry option, which opens up the experience of riding 200 miles in a day to riders of differing capabilities and commitment of time for training, for example. Riding in a relay team with a support driver as the vehicle, you can share the miles and split the route into manageable 35-mile segments and take breaks traveling in the support vehicle to the next checkpoint while your teammates ride, for example. So your individual goal becomes to ride just, in inverted commas, 100 to 130 miles in the day, depending on if it's a 3-person, 4-person replay, etc. And so you split it into the 35-mile legs as separate rides throughout the day with rests in between. So as a team, you can reach sunset with more time to spare or at a slower average speed riding in this format. And thus, you can minimize stops, and it makes it more accessible to more different fitness abilities. So word has spread organically as our events become more popular, but who are we focused on spreading the idea to, including seeking to encourage more different types of riders from different backgrounds to join our events and make them as inclusive and representative of the cycling community as possible. This includes aiming to address the gender balance in our events. And that brings us to the merits of this evening's webinar live. I'm delighted to welcome so many of you to this call. Whether you're signed up to ride Chase the Sun, sat on the fence and not sure, or you've never heard about Chase the Sun before and you just want to learn more, this webinar is aimed for you. And if you're watching this recorded on YouTube, this advice session is relevant to absolutely everyone. We have for you a selection of inspiring, informed speakers tonight, some spot on, cracking bits of advice for riding bikes and long distance challenges, whatever route you choose to take. They just all happen to be women, and so we've brought them together for this opportunity to showcase that expertise for your benefit. Tonight's mostly female audience this evening, but the wisdom and advice that they have to share is relevant to everyone. That's it for me. I hope you enjoy. I'm going to leave it to Izzy to chair and introduce our first speaker.
Thanks, Ollie. So our first speaker tonight is Amanda. You may recognise Amanda from the Chasing the Sun film, which premiered in 2023. Feels like yesterday, but it was actually a couple of years ago now. But Amanda has ridden Chase the Sun a couple of times. She's done the southern route and the northern route, and she has some tips on training and also how to deal with hot weather. So I will hand over to Amanda.
Excellent. So a lot of people will check weather forecast, see the sun and think, amazing. I see the sun and think, no. Ultimately, like for me, an ideal temperature ride is like 15 degrees. My first Chase the Sun was like 32, 33 degrees. I learned a lot about myself and my abilities during that first Chase the Sun. So I didn't complete it. I got to 150 miles. But I was so incredibly proud of my achievement and what I managed and how I managed myself. And what I learned during that initial Chase the Sun, I've then taken forward into the next two. So I think for me, like training in the heat is not something we always get an opportunity to do in this country. So ways that I learned to stay cool in hot weather is to just keep hydrating, keep up with the electrolytes. And also the biggest tip that I tried and tested on the north last year was every stop I could, I soaked my jersey in cold water. I took my helmet off, again, soaked my hair in cold water, kept my wrists cool. And that really helped to keep my body temperature down, which then helped to make my ride a lot more enjoyable. And I think just taking regular stops, and keep hydrating is the biggest thing that I learned about temperature. In terms of training, for me, the biggest thing was learning to really enjoy it. So I joined a couple of local women's cycling groups, met the most amazing community of people, which led to me having fun. And it was so much easier to get out, whether it was hot weather or cold weather. It just kind of got rid of those excuses because I knew that I was going to have a nice time. On the flip side of that, I also got comfortable riding on my own and sort of increasing my distances. And the way that I made that something that I really looked forward to was to find the nice cafe stops, the great places with good coffee, good cakes, those kind of things. Something that really enabled my confidence around that was learning some mechanical skills on the bike. So I learned how to fix my punctures, index my gears and things, so that I had the confidence in myself that if I was on a long ride on my own away from home and something did happen, I knew how to fix it. I also planned my route somewhere that I knew there was train stations somewhere nearby within a sort of like 10-mile distance so that I could, worst case, push my bike if it got, to the point where I couldn't fix it, which I think, again, is really important. Sort of going further afield led to me with some navigational challenges, I think. I am not very good at navigating. My first Chase the Sun, I got lost getting to the start line. So I have this reputation for getting lost all the time, group rides, whatever, I just get lost. I bought a decent GPS. I had one that I used for a few years and I've sort of recently upgraded it, and really getting to know how that worked before Chase the Sun again gave me heaps of confidence because I knew how to reroute on the fly if I needed to, which again is really, really important. I wouldn't be without it now. And I know that was one of my biggest concerns on my first Chase the Sun was where am I going to find water? How hot is it going to get? And am I going to get lost? It turns out all of those things I really didn't need to worry about, because the people around are amazing. I think the other thing that was a challenge for me was fitting training around periods, and the balance of just listening to my body and not pushing things too hard when I didn't need to. I think that's it. Yeah. And just be kind to yourself. Like, that's the biggest thing. I think it's supposed to be enjoyable and it's going to be the best time. So enjoy it.
Thanks, Amanda. I think, yeah, that's a really good point. Like, just enjoying it. I think people forget that during training, like that's the longest, that's the thing that takes the longest amount of time, right? Like, the event is one day, and the event should really be like the cherry on the cake. You should also be enjoying the training. That's also a huge part of why you sign up to do this event. It's not just about the final result. And I actually found that if I called it training, that kind of put me off a little bit. Instead, I'd just say that I'm going for a ride, or my weekend ride is going to be 30 miles or 60 miles, because then you think of it as like an adventure, or as like, a ride that you would normally go on, as opposed to something that you're going to feel tired from afterwards. So yeah, that's a really good point, is just to enjoy the training and be really intentional about enjoying your training as well. So like, decide that you are going to enjoy it, and then you'll find ways to enjoy it. So yeah, thank you very much, Amanda. I'm now going to hand over to Alice. So you might know Alice from her Alice Be Active Instagram account. Alice has done Chase the Sun before. She's done it a couple of times, once with 2 weeks training, which is very brave, very brave, but shows it can be done. So yeah, amazing achievement. Alice, you've got tips on nutrition and clothing, so what to take with you and that sort of thing. So fire away when you're ready.
Perfect. So I would say the key thing for completing Chase the Sun would definitely be making sure you don't underfuel. So I would say that nutrition is definitely key, and it can be the difference between having like an amazing experience compared to having a really tough one. I would suggest making sure that you fuel when you actually feel good, rather than when you start to feel rubbish, because normally when you fuel when you're starting to feel rubbish, it's normally when it's too late. And it's really hard to then actually try and get yourself back to kind of feeling good. And I think the minute that you start feeling rubbish because you haven't fueled yourself properly, it can then be a real mental challenge. I would, I don't know how many of you have a bike computer, but if you do have a bike computer, I set up in the settings that you can have a reminder for like every 30 minutes, or things like that, because you don't actually realize how quickly the time goes until you realize you're like an hour in and you realize you've completely forgotten to fuel. So if you have a bike computer, I would definitely advise having like a reminder on there for it to just remind you to eat and drink. On the drinking side, I would definitely suggest having something like carb powder to actually put in with your water, and electrolytes. I would definitely suggest electrolytes as well, especially as Amanda said on one of her Chase the Sun rides, it was unbelievably hot, and you just need to make sure that you are topping up on electrolytes, your salts and everything like that, because it can cause cramping otherwise, and that's just horrendous. The other thing is I was very lucky to have a support car on both of my Chase the Suns, on the south and the north. My dad very kindly drove the 200 miles to support me. If you do have the luxury of a support car, not that it is necessary, it's still possible to obviously do Chase the Sun without one. So I just want to highlight that it's not necessary to have a support car. But if you do, I would definitely recommend actually having a spare pair of bib shorts that you actually change at halfway. It can completely change the second half of the ride. It just makes you feel so much more comfortable. It kind of gives you that new energy. And yeah, I would definitely recommend having maybe some spare changes of clothes, because on the North ride we also had quite a lot of rain, didn't we, Amanda? So to also have like a spare jersey as well, so I actually changed my jersey halfway. And just having that, it just does make the whole ride a lot more comfortable. And obviously you can have things in the back of the car, like, you know, extra gels and fuel and things like that. So yeah, I think I've covered everything.
Thanks, Alice. On the nutrition front, I think, yeah, I mean, as you say, eating really regularly is important, but I also think it's really it's kind of important that you don't need to think of yourself as a nutritionist. You know, it's useful, obviously, to have that guidance, but I've done Chase the Sun 3 times now, and I don't understand the science behind nutrition or how many carbs I've got to eat per hour. I just ate before I was hungry. I just ate all the time, you know, like 5 shortbreads in my back pocket, and just, you know, constantly eating. And I think that, as you say, like that is the key. It's just to not don't allow yourself to get hungry, basically, isn't it? You've just got to keep eating. But in terms of what you eat, you can practice that on your training rides. A lot of people find that eating normal foods, and nutritionists will advise often that you eat normal foods and not constantly eating gels and things. I mean, you know, there's bad for your teeth as they are for your stomach. So just having a variety of food and food for different occasions is great as well. And as you said, like on the North route, when it was raining, having food that you can access really quickly, like a gel or like a flapjack that you've like wrapped yourself, and is easy to access, is also really important.
One extra thing quickly is the other thing I've just remembered. I found on the North route, I found it really hard at some points to actually eat. So to have drinks that you don't feel like you're eating, but you can still get your calories in things like, you know, carb powder and things like that. So it's still making sure that you're keeping your carb stores up. So yeah, that was one extra little thing to add.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that makes a big difference, especially when it's hot as well. And some of them are quite nice now. Like, they used to be horrible, but the flavors are getting better and more varied, which is nice.
Yeah.
On the point about clothing as well, I just thought I'd mention the obvious, really, that a lot of people will be riding from 4 a.m. until 10 p.m. or, you know, later than that. You go through a whole different range of temperatures depending on the route you're on. So if you do have a support vehicle, like Alice says, then obviously you can chuck as much stuff as you can in there and really make the most of that space. Take you know, a whole range of kit with you. If you don't have that, then it's absolutely still doable to take some things that will help you, like arm warmers, which are so handy because you can just roll them down your arms when you get too hot, or a hat that you can shove in your back pocket. So yeah, just having sort of some extra layers, if possible, is always a good plan. I am now going to pass this on to Debbie. So Debbie also has an Instagram account called Duathlon Girl UK. Debbie is a former world champion in duathlon, which is absolutely epic. And she's doing Chase the Sun for the first time, like many people on this call are. But having had that experience in doing lots of events, Debbie has some great tips on mindset and how to prepare for events like Chase the Sun. So yeah, Debbie, whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone, I can see some familiar faces actually, and hi. There are a couple of familiar faces on here. So yeah, thanks for that lovely introduction. Let me kind of set the scene here that my racing would last anything from 20 minutes to an hour, that was pretty much the racing that I did. So kind of moving over to endurance sports, there's obviously a lot to learn around it. And yeah, I am the only person on the panel that hasn't done Chase the Sun yet. But you know, when I was asked, I didn't hesitate. I didn't think, oh, can I? Will I be able to? I've never ridden that far in my life. I've never ridden half that distance. I just straight away said, yeah, I can do that. And that is the power of the mind and mindset. And that's what I wanted to share with you, really. Our mind is our greatest asset, and it will get us through the tough times. So if you're sat here at the moment thinking, I'm not sure if I'm ready for this, then you're never going to feel ready, quite honestly. You'll wait forever. The first thing you need to do is commit and say, yeah, I can do this, and I am going to do this. And that's the first step, really, in switching on your mindset, because you can spend quite a lot of wasted energy just worrying about things that haven't happened or things that are out of your control. So just focus on the things that you can do once you've committed and said, yes, I'm going to do this. Something I've said to myself quite a lot in the past when I've challenged myself is, well, actually, loads of people have done this before me, so why should I be any different? And I think that's a good thing to say to you. I know I said it to myself before I had my daughter, and then I had a £9.14 baby. I'm not sure that many people have had £9.14 babies, but yeah, look, loads of women have done Chase the Sun. Loads of people have done things like this. So why should you be any different? The most important thing is you put in the time and the preparation around it. So I know some of you might be doing the relay option, which is amazing. So you've got that. I suppose what I wanted to share with you is tiny bit of neuroscience. Our brain's purpose is to keep us safe. And keeping us safe means it doesn't like us to do things that feel big or scary. It constantly wants to protect us and keep us safe. So we do have to work quite hard to challenge that kind of thinking and tell ourselves that we are safe and we can do that. So I'm going to share a few things that I've used in the past that have helped me with mindset. But as I said right at the start, I think the most important thing is once you've committed to say that you're doing something, shift that focus from can I, what if, to this is how I'm going to manage it. So these are the things that I'm going to do, I'm going to put in place to ensure that this goes as well as it possibly can for me. So decide once and remove that doubt. Just let it go. They're things that you can't control. Just focus on the things you can control and trust that process. Things that you can focus on and spend your energy on are lots of things that are coming up in the chat. What am I going to wear? Trying that out in training. What am I going to eat? Does that suit my tummy? You know, all those things. What equipment am I going to have with me? You can focus on all of those things to make you feel much more comfortable about what's ahead. The ride itself, I am absolutely not going into it thinking I'm riding 200 miles in one day. I'm breaking it down. I'm breaking, like I did duathlon, right? I just need to, do the first 5K. Right now, I just need to do transition. Okay, right now I'm onto the bike. And it's doing exactly that. It's just breaking down what can feel quite overwhelming into lots of manageable chunks. And, that might be, just to give you an example, the first 50 miles are just about settling in, just getting to a really nice, comfortable pace. The second is about really being efficient with your pedaling, your fueling. The third, just using people around you, that third 50 miles, use those people around you. They're as well as your mindset, they're your people. They're going to help you through what is going to get tough at times. And the final section, just own it. I've done, I'm in a really great place here and I've got to this point, and that way you're never doing 200 miles. You've broken it down into these manageable steps. I think I've mentioned there when it gets tough. The reality is with something like this, it is going to get tough, and you prepare yourself for that, because I think there's a saying, isn't there, like don't label stuff as good or bad. It's just part of that kind of up and down process of riding for such a long period of time. They're just part of a long day and a long ride. The highs won't last, I'm afraid, sorry to tell you. They're more likely to last if you're fueling really well, but the highs won't last, and neither will the lows. and you'll have people around you and the atmosphere of others, the connections, those conversations to really help you get through those times. So lean on people, and I guarantee they'll be leaning on you at some point as well. I think I've mentioned this, but I'll just again, you build confidence through the preparation. So hold the vision, trust that process. The process side of things is what's within your control through practice. So that's what kit you're going to wear, how many layers you're going to wear. Practice, what shoes. Don't wear, my goodness, please don't wear new kit or shoes on the day of the event. That could be quite uncomfortable for you. Work out what is a comfortable pace for you to ride long distances, and have that as a bit of a guide, that you have some where you would like to be at certain times. Don't make it unrealistic, and certainly don't beat yourself up if you're not quite where you need to be, but have some kind of plan. It's really hard to make good decisions when you're very fatigued. And I've learned that just from an hour's racing. It's hard. So try and prepare and plan that stuff in advance. We've already talked about, I think Alice mentioned the Garmin reminders, if you can do stuff like that to help you eat, or just as a general rule for me, it's every 30 to 45 minutes that I'd be eating and drinking. And yeah, what else can I tell you? Don't think, and I learned this from running the London Marathon, don't think that you have to ride the full distance in training at all. Consistency is what's going to be most important between now and when you do this. Just consistently doing training. Before I ran the London Marathon, I think my longest run was about 16 mile. And that was just because I think I'd got a cold or something near to the time, so it was easier to rest. So don't think that you've got to do the full distance or too much. It's about staying consistent. And I have a rule of 80-20. If you can just be consistent for 80% of the time with your training, your recovery, then that's great. And my final thoughts, just to leave you with, this is my absolute favorite, and I say it all the time: hold the vision, trust the process. So whatever your goal, whether that is to chase the sun and get there before sunset, whether it's to finish faster than last time you did it, just hold that picture in your head as to what that is going to feel like, because I've got a picture of what that's going to feel like for me. And if you don't realise the power of the mind in those scenarios, I'd ask you to think for a moment about biting into a lemon and how that feels right now. And straight away, your mind goes to that. And I thought I should have got a lemon so I could have done a demo here. You'd have all gone, because that's how powerful our mind is. Our brains respond to what we visualize. It doesn't know the difference between real or what you're saying to it in your head. So visualize what it feels like completing something amazing, like amazing as Chase the Sun, and what that's going to feel like, the sense of satisfaction that you're going to have at the end of that ride. Picture yourself crossing the finishing line, feel it, and just build towards that feeling, because that will stay with you for a long time. So there's been some great questions come through on the chat, and I know we're going to come back to those, but yeah, please do remember how powerful your mind is. Hold the vision, trust the process. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Absolutely loved those tips. Yeah, when you were talking about being able to lean on people, I was thinking back to my experiences of Chase the Sun, and I'm riding it solo, except that if you're riding it solo, you never end up riding it solo, because you will find that everyone you just like build groups as you ride, and then you're like gradually, like, you might drop people or people drop you and you join other groups, but no matter what stage you're at in your ride, there's always people there to support you. It never feels like an event that you have to cope with by yourself, which is really lovely, and is actually one of the best parts of Chase the Sun, is the atmosphere. it feels very casual and very supportive, and that's largely because it's not a race, right? It's just a personal challenge that everyone's trying to do. And the other thing about visualization is, I thought I'd jump in with one of my favorite tips, which is to think of 3 words that you want to be on the day. And it could be that those 3 words correspond to a certain part, like a certain period of the ride. For example, in the morning, you want to feel excited. In the afternoon, I don't know, like 150 miles in, you want to feel strong. And I pictured those words on my handlebars like buttons, and then you can like push the buttons, and it's honestly amazing that vision, like the impact that vision has. As Debbie was saying, like your brain just doesn't really understand, especially at that point when you're exhausted. It just can't understand what's real, what's not at that point. So yeah, just being able to visualize pushing on this button. I don't know, it could say like energy or boost or happy or strong or whatever you want your word to be. Yeah, just it really helps things, and it will make you focus. Whether you realize it or not, you will end up focusing on that word, on how you want to feel, and therefore you'll end up feeling like that word. So yeah, so that was, just wanted to jump in with my own sort of experience with visualization. Yeah, really, really powerful tool. And I think a lot of people would probably argue that those mental preparations are as, if not more important than the physical preparation. So if you don't have time to do all the training that you wanted to do, then there's always time up until the morning of to practice your mindset techniques before you do the event. On that, we will now move on to the last speaker, last but not least, Roanna. So Roanna is the founder of Girls That Ride Bikes, which is a Dorset-based cycle community. And she also organises the Girls That Ride Bikes World Weekender, which, if you don't know, you need to get to know because it's awesome. It's a women's cycling festival. And if that wasn't enough, Roanna has also been awarded one of Cycling UK's 100 Women in Cycling this year. And she's also a mother. So Roanna is going to be sharing her tips around how to balance family life with training, which will be the situation for many women who are listening to this right now. And she's also got some other tips to share as well. So I will pass over to Roanna.
Hi. So yeah, I'm going to talk about some of these bits today. I wanted to first talk about some of the less glamorous parts of endurance sport, the bits we don't always talk about on Instagram, periods, fatigue, and managing family life around training. Chase the Sun sounds romantic, but it also involves tired legs, sore backs, and sometimes thinking, I really wish my period wasn't due right now. These hurdles don't mean you're weak. They're just part of doing things hard over long periods of time. Almost everyone with a cycle has that moment on a start line or in the week before, and it just adds a layer of challenge. I've had some awful experiences personally during racing, but actually Chase the Sun is different because it's not a race and you can stop. My top tips for that are to pack spare bib shorts if you can. I think period cups are an absolute game changer in my opinion. And get used to training on your period. So going out and actually knowing how that feels, and getting, working with your body. So it's not about ignoring it, but it's about working with it. The next part I was going to talk about is fatigue management. So I know Alice touched on this a bit, but fatigue isn't a sudden wall, it creeps up quietly. And most of the time, it's not due to lack of fitness, it's lack of fuel. So it's all about eating before you think you need to, and topping up regularly, even when food feels unappealing. It's carried me through moments when I thought I was done. And every time I felt like I was hitting a wall, food would definitely help me carry through. It's not about nutrition science, it's just experience. It's constant small intakes, not waiting till you're empty, and eating, making eating as part of the effort, not the reward after. I also wanted to touch on about fatigue. Is the first year that I entered Chase the Sun, we entered as the Girls That Ride Bikes, and we did it as a relay. So we took it in turns, one section each to drive, which was actually really good. Number one as well, because you could get your car from one side to the other, but also it gave you a break, which was really nice. So it allowed you to take that the gap and do the 35 mile in the car, and it also meant that we could enter with a mixed group. So some people actually didn't feel as confident as others. So a couple of us did complete the distance. A couple of us took a couple of times to take the opportunity to go in the car. And sometimes when people also felt that they were feeling particularly fatigued, they just joined somebody in the car. So, having that flexibility to decide on the day whether you feel good or you feel like you want to break, like that part of it was really nice, being able to have a vehicle and make that decision if you wanted to take a break for the next leg. And the packs that go out are really great because they actually give you these kind of visual cues of where all the stops are, how far they are apart, and you can break it down and say, right, okay, my aim is to do this many sections, or I would like to drive only one section, and then you can actually plan it as you go, and you know where all the stops are, and there's food stops, there's coffee stops, and it's a really good map that allows you to understand like how it's broken down into sections and how many miles you would do each. So you can work it out as a team of 4 or a team of 5, or a team of 3, and you can work out how many distances that would actually equate to each person doing. So the next topic I wanted to talk about is training around work, kids, and real life. Training hours for me is particularly hard to find because life doesn't pause because you've entered an endurance event. The things that help me, turbo trainer, especially in the winter. But if there's days where my partner's not home, it doesn't mean that I can't go out and exercise. So I can sit and do a session, but still be around, so the kids can come in and out. I plan sessions around kids clubs and dinner time, so I know that they've eaten, and then I'll go on my session. But the main thing with it is, consistency accumulates over time. So if I can get 30 minutes or I can get an hour on the turbo, and I can do that in the morning or in the evening, it will soon add up, and I'll be doing 5 or 6 hours on the turbo a week because I can fit it in those small amounts of time. And sometimes when I want to do a longer ride, my partner's also into cycling and will want to do training for events that he's working on. So we will do it where I'll wake up in the morning and I'll cycle to the destination that we were going to go to as a family, and then we'll go and have a day out on the beach, and then he'll cycle home. So it just means that I leave slightly earlier and he leaves the beach slightly before me, and it works really well. So we can both get a decent ride in, and we can have time as a family to do things. Sometimes it means leaving really early, like 5 o'clock in the morning, riding 5 hours and meeting up at lunchtime. By the time you've done it, you get pretty knackered, but it's good and it works. It just requires flexibility and creativity. So yeah, my final message really is endurance sport isn't about perfect conditions. It's about adapting when things aren't ideal. Chase the Sun works because it allows space to stop, space to fuel, to manage life alongside the challenge. You don't need everything to line up perfectly. You just need to keep showing up one decision at a time.
Thanks, Roanna. Yeah, really nice tips. I guess as well, when you say you could get up like really early, but you could also, I guess, just think about how to integrate cycling into other parts of your life. Like, do you cycle your kids to school, or or to activities and things like that, because that could be a way for others as well to just increase the mileage on the bike, but like in a subtle way.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's the kids get invited to a birthday party and you manage to get 2 hours of time and you go, okay, I'm going to drop them to the birthday party. We go for a ride, then go and pick them up and then come home. You do get very creative with like finding little gaps of time. But yeah, I do enjoy cycling the kids to school too.
Yeah, nice. Oh, yeah. So the other thing is, if you haven't already seen pictures of Rowana or Girls That Ride Bikes on our social media, they just look so much fun. Like the videos of you all in the back of the van and like having a giggle and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's a really great way to do the event, but also just have a great time.
It definitely helps having people around you to do it with. It's great, but equally we met so many amazing people, like everyone talks about, along the route. So we had people join in on our group loads of times, and they just loved kind of being part of like our group as well. So it was kind of like, even though we were riding as a big group, it was great. But we actually like met so many people along the way, which made it really lovely.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's a great way to do the event. We can move on to the Q&A now, which is exciting. We've got about 15 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll get through as many questions as we can, but if we can't get through all of them, we will be posting a follow-up blog where we'll be answering frequently asked questions. So without further ado, one of the first types of questions that popped up was around GPS and Garmin recommendations. I'm going to hand over to Amanda to answer this one, just because she spoke about her GPS. So Amanda, what GPS do you use?
Oh, it makes me laugh because I'm the one that got lost on the way to the start.
Look at where you are now.
So GPS, I'm on my second GPS. So I had a Lezyne XL to start off with. Amazing, black and white. I used it for 2 years, 40-hour battery life, breadcrumb trail. Great. Saw me through 2 Chase the Suns. Last year, I upgraded to a Garmin. So I've got a Garmin 1040. Again, it's got like a 40-hour battery life. I don't need to worry about battery packs or anything on Chase the Sun because it just keeps going. It's got all the maps on it. You can drop your points of interest on it. It's great. I totally recommend that.
Yeah, that's really important. Thank you. There's a few questions about battery packs as well. So I would always recommend that you do take a battery pack with you, even just a small one, so you can charge your phone if you need to quite easily. But yeah, definitely something to note, because a lot of the GPS devices, they only last for about 10 or 15 hours, and you never know how long you're going to take. So it's something to look up. If you don't know how long your device lasts, then then check before you go. Or if you have a couple, if your partner has one and you have one, and you're doing Chase the Sun, then you could pack theirs as a backup. But they're normally quite small, aren't they? So you can just pop them in your pocket. If you are able to take a backup, then that's always a good option. Thanks, Amanda. I will move on to the next set of questions, which were around not finishing. So I'm going to pass over to Ollie to talk about the logistics, like what happens if you don't finish, and also, is it okay if you don't finish, or if you finish when it's dark?
Thanks, Izzy. Well, first answer to that part is the goal is whatever you set it to be. It could be your longest ever ride, it could be your longest day ride, it could be riding throughout sunrise to sunset, it could be getting coast to coast and actually making the finish line, but maybe after sunset, or it could be reaching the coast to see the last ray of sunset into the ocean, which I suppose is the ideal vision of what you're aiming for. But there's many different finishes to a Chase the Sun ride, and often, Amanda can testify, first ride didn't make the finish, didn't make sunset, why did you come back? It's still an extraordinary day on a bicycle. So that's the first thing to say. Don't see there's no success or failure other than what you want to, believe in your head for what you've got out of the day and experience. What if you decide to stop before you reach the finish? Well, there's a couple of practical things. You must contact the phone number on event control to let us know that you've stopped, so that we can arrange to meet you, or you can get just a little bit further to our next stop, where we've got someone who can take your GPS tracker off of you, out of your pocket, to return that. I would say it varies slightly route by route. But generally, the route maps and the route itself follow a pattern of towns, often with a train line that follows, generally with some good transport connections, particularly in the afternoon. There are sort of designated bailout points marked in sort of certain points in the afternoon. In the South Ride, for example, I know Trowbridge is a good one. It's got a train station there which can connect you into Bristol, back to London, etc., on to Weston-super-Mare, should you be meeting someone in the rest of your group. Closer to the finish, there's always local taxi companies that will be aware of the ride. If you're within 20 miles or something of the finish and you just don't want to carry on riding into the dark, then you can always ring a taxi and get yourself to the finish line that way. There is no official broom wagon. We don't promise that. That would be, the scale of our rides. That would be too much to guarantee and administer. That said, there's a lot of support cars along the way. And, if you found yourself in a friendly group, then there will likely be a car not too far away that might be traveling on to the finish, that might be able to give you a lift, or even a lift just to the nearest train station. Again, if there's a Chase the Sun official van that's nearby, that's leaving one of the stops, it may well be that you can ask, to be dropped to the nearest train station or something like that, should you have, done some damage to your bike that makes it not rideable or something like that. Obviously, if you injure yourself, then that's something that you can seek first aid, or call an ambulance, that kind of thing. If the worst happens, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, Ollie. And whilst you're here, I'll just ask you another question, if that's okay. On support vehicles, so somebody has asked whether it's unusual not to have a support vehicle.
Oh God, no. I mean, the vast majority of people who undertake the event don't have support vehicles. I wouldn't want to encourage people to think that they have to have one, that they should have one, that they must have one. I mean, this is your adventure. You can take it on in whatever way you like, but I do think there's something beautiful about just setting off on a bicycle with just you and your own steam. And the routes are planned for that, that they intentionally take, past shops, petrol stations, things that will be open long hours, pubs, stop bike shops, etc. Everything that you will need that's available is plotted on the route maps, which you will receive around 6 to 8 weeks before the ride, when we finalize the detail of this year's, all those stops that I'm mentioning. That will be sent out to all registered riders about 6 to 8 weeks before the event. So it becomes a bit of an index for you of all the things along the route that you can really rely on. So no, you don't need a support car at all. Obviously, those that do have them, that there is some benefit. But equally, if you join up with a group who have a support car and you're riding at exactly the same pace as that person, then it might well be possible for you to, buy a bit of extra food at that next sort of stop, and put some of it in their boot. Maybe put your jacket in a boot, or a wet pair of shoes or something like that. That's obviously up for you to kind of organise as you go. But no, not essential at all.
Thanks, Ollie. I'm going to hand over to Alice now. Sorry to put you on the spot, Alice. But there's a few questions around what to do the day after the ride. So would you do like a shorter ride, or would you rest? And it would be good to hear your experiences of how you felt the day after, and what you did to recover.
Okay, I might not be the best person to ask for this one, because I got back on my bike quite soon after. I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. The other thing I would maybe suggest is finding a place that, like, you maybe going for a swim afterwards, to kind of like loosen up your body and things like that, or maybe even go into like a sauna or a steam room, or like go with how your body feels is probably the best advice, because obviously, like, we're all totally different. You know, we all do different mileage each week. I would just literally suggest listening to your body and doing what you feel is right. Yeah, I'd say.
You'll probably feel very hungry the day after, I would
Yeah.
say. And those drinks that you're talking about, the hydration drinks, are equally as important on the second day.
Yes, definitely.
When it
Definitely.
was, I don't know about you, but when it was hot, and Amanda will probably feel the same way, I almost felt like hungover the next day. And it was like similar symptoms. And yeah, so just drinking and just eating like as much as you want.
Yeah. It's weird because I wasn't particularly hungry that evening. I ended up bumping into a load of people at the finish line, and we went for like a curry at the end. And I wasn't particularly hungry for it. I mean, it was delicious, but I just wasn't hungry. And it was probably about 2 or 3 days later, and I literally could have eaten my body weight in food.
It's
So,
quite a
yeah.
nice feeling though, isn't it?
It's lovely. And you don't feel like, not that you should ever feel guilty of eating that much food, like just go for it because you've done the most amazing like achievement, but you don't even feel guilty because you're like, I'm ready across the country. So
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
I'll
Thank
just
you.
jump in there, Izzy. I looked it up the other day. I think the average number of calories that someone burns in a marathon, and then the average number of people of calories that people riding Chase the Sun, it's about 3 marathons worth. So you can refuel to your heart's content
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
days afterwards.
I think I burn around 8,000 calories
Yeah.
doing Chase the Sun. So what is that like? That's 4 days or something worth of food, you know. It's a lot of food. So yeah, just go hard the day after, eat a whole cake if you want to. So we've got a few questions around like the start and like when the last rider leaves at the start and the average sort of cut-off time. There is no cut-off time, by the way. You can ride until the following day if you want to. But yeah, I will hand over to you, Ollie, to talk about the start and how that works.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just contradict that very last point, that we used to just have no cutoff time. We do now have some more guidance around when you are officially part of the event. So there is a late afternoon checkpoint which has a notional cutoff time of sort of 8 o'clock in the evening, where if you still haven't, I mean, don't quote me on this, it's different for each route, but if you still haven't passed sort of 140 miles or something by 8 o'clock, we sort of say, look, the timing looks like you're going to arrive way like after midnight, even on your current pace, notwithstanding your ongoing fatigue and the fact you'll ride slower and slower from here. So at that point, we advise people that they're not likely not going to make it. They're not going to make it when we've still got staff at the finish, etc. And so we advise them, but we don't enforce them to stop riding. We do ask that we take their tracker and that they kind of officially leave the event. So there is some advisory cutoff, but that's not often used. That's not often needed. The average speed that you would need to ride is, if you're riding the entire route and you've got various stops along the way for food and refueling and rest, etc., then you want to look at being able to ride at 15 mile an hour comfortable on your training rides. That's if you minimize the stops. If you want to have more time and be more generous with your stops, like if you're riding in a bigger group and more people means more time, more toilet stops, etc., and then you want to be looking at more like 16 mile an hour average on those group rides, and being able to keep that up when you get towards the latter end of a training ride of like 80, 90, 100 miles, etc. So when you are a little bit tired, fueling for that is absolutely essential. It's been covered already, but fueling is the biggest, most common point of failure, running out of fuel and not being able to get that calorie deficit back. So number one tip, eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty. I know it's already been said, but just to re-emphasize, that is the most important thing, to look after yourself. That goes for, your mental awareness and safety and everything as well. The point about what time does the last rider leave at the start? So it depends a bit. Obviously, the sun rises at different times at the different route locations, so I won't go through all of them, but it will be on the website and on the route book. There are more or less riders at some of the routes. So the south one's most popular, and it'll be over 1,000 riders starting there. So we release people onto the road in groups to keep it safe. And for that reason, we'll be releasing people in the south up to 20 minutes or so before sunrise, and then tailing off the latecomers will be, or the people at the back of the queue rather, will be leaving something like 20 minutes after sunrise. So it's up to you. There's no ranking about her. It's just first come, first serve. So if you feel like you might ride slower and you want to make sure that you get set off earlier, then just get to the start that little bit earlier. Drop your bag off if you've got that to put in the bag van a little bit earlier. There will be a little bit of queue and stuff like that. So just prepare and get there sooner, and you'll start sooner, and you'll have more time to ride.
Thanks, Ollie. I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap up the Q&A now because time is marching on. But yeah, as I said before, and if your question hasn't been answered, we will try and come to it in a blog. But if not, you'll be able to find the answers to frequently asked questions on our website anyway, or you can drop us an email if you'd like to do that. So I will hand back over to Ollie just to wrap things up. What I will say though before doing that is, if you're not already, it's worth subscribing to our email list, because we'll be sharing other webinars and that sort of thing over the coming months. So more tips and webinars and blogs and that sort of thing to help prepare you for the event. So if you're not subscribed already, you can do that from our website. And yes, thank you very much from me for joining tonight. It's so lovely to see so many of you, and really inspiring that so many women are going to be part of this event. So yeah, thanks very much for coming. Over to you, Ollie.
Thanks, Izzy. And a big thank you to all of our ambassadors who've shared their thoughts today. I think there's some really valuable insights and information there. I know it's certainly been valuable for me, just, as an observer, really, to hear you all sharing female riders, variety of concerns, thoughts, motivations around riding long distances. And that's what we're looking to absorb, myself and Izzy, to help us, grow Chase the Sun, and how we can support with ideas, information, to how we can best encourage a more diverse involvement of different riders of different genders in the future for Chase the Sun, how we can make you feel confident and informed, and all the information that you will need to succeed. So as Izzy said, there's been a few questions in the chat to do with food, nutrition, etc. There will be other webinars, and there will be training days as well. So sign up for a training day if you're local to one of those. Sign up to the next webinars, which will be focused on, coaching, preparation, nutrition, bike fitting, etc. There'll be lots more opportunities to absorb that information. And yeah, I hope that you've found some use from the conversation today. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all at sunrise. But importantly, as Izzy said, enjoy the training and the journey to get there too. That's more than half the battle and more than half the reward. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.